scary.
Hello and welcome. I am Sir Shudder. Before we begin, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon to see when I've done another video. Today's video is about extremely haunted dolls. Sit back, relax, and without further ado, we'll begin. Letter the Doll. The article I'm going to read to you is written by Melissa Mason, and I'm literally going to read it as she's written it. Hello, it's me, PT's resident haunted doll editor. I gave myself that title because I refuse to let anyone else write about cursed dolls and supernatural stuff. Feel free to revisit some of my finest work. There are links on the website. And today we have our very own Australian cursed doll, a haunted little marionette, if you will, and its name is Letter Me Out. Letter Me Out has actually been a thing for years and years. Here's some interesting video footage from 2002, for example.
If you believe in voodoo or extrasensory powers, then Kerry Walton of Mount Cotton has a tale for you. It's a kind of rags to riches story centering on a spooky-looking doll. And after Kerry's change of fortune, he's refusing some very generous offers from would-be buyers. Doug Murray discovered there is a spooky side to an ancient gypsy toy.
Just a chance discovery under a derelict house in country New South Wales. A 200-year-old doll, the type used by fortune-predicting gypsies.
It frightened me. You know, put the wind right up me. And then after I'd settled down a bit and realised what it was, you know, I thought, oh, geez, this is a nice find, you know.
Kerry Walton sensed a lifetime of scrounging had finally paid off. Yet he never imagined the extent of his future good fortune.
It must be just the features and the nose and the long chin and the glass eyes. Makes him look very evil, I think.
What about that grin?
Yeah. Well, sometimes he looks like he's grinning, and other times, you know, depending on what shadows are in the house, it looks like he's a bit unhappy, you know.
Early headlines suggested a satanic influence. Local dogs went into attack mode when close to the doll. A weird reaction not restricted to canines.
We have friends that come up from Sydney and they tell us we've got to put the doll over in the shed before they come up.
Kerry's shed doubles as his place of business for storing his collectibles scrounged from around the state for resale.
When we first brought him home, Kerry wouldn't even have him in the house.
Somehow, seemingly ordinary junk in the shed became valuable overnight, worth more than Kerry's wildest imaginings. He cashed in. Suddenly there was money to spend on the trappings of success. A luxury estate on Brisbane's outskirts. It was an amazing lifestyle reversal.
We come from a home, housing commission house, broke all the time, no money at all, and he turned up and things started to change.
The once shunned doll moved indoors as part of the family. Now, whenever Evelyn selects those lucky lotto numbers, there's a guiding influence to improve the chances. Even Kerry's attitude towards the doll changed from indifference to affection, especially when big money offers started coming in.
I kept on telling this guy, I said, no, it's not for sale. But, you know, he went up to 10,000. You know, I said, you know, a lot of money back then. I said, no, not for sale.
That's what they all say.
But since I've never heard of him, I decided no one else has either. BC, I am nothing if not completely self-involved. Letter Me Out was originally found underneath a house in Wagga Wagga. As all good haunted dolls are found, this was 46 years ago, And owner Kerry Walton, apparently according to Listverse, who give absolutely no citation as to where they discovered this information, named the doll Let Me Out because of its apparent European gypsy heritage. This really ties in with my imaginary scenario of Let Me Out wandering the halls of Kerry's home, whispering, "Let me out, let me out." Kerry now lives in Warwick, QLD, and still has Let Me Out, who apparently is still on his BS. I reckon he walks in the night time. We came in here as a new house, and I've never heard so many strange things in my life, he told Warwick Daily News. He reckons house objects often shift overnight, that the doll has actually moved in front of people. Absolutely horrific. And that there are scuff marks around the house. Scuff marks like small doll-sized shoe scuffs on the floors. Why is Kerry so chill about this? Kerry reckons the doll was owned by a ye-old child who drowned. After this happened during an interview with a psychic. Super okay that. Let Me Out has his own Facebook page. If you feel like inviting his demon into your daily life, and he writes on there in first person. Even more bizarre, the doll has its own Instagram page. Harold, the Haunted Doll. One of the most verbally vicious dolls on the list. Harold is one of the most visibly dishevelled. He was created approximately around the turn of the century and has passed through many hands. It's unclear whether the doll is possessed, cursed or haunted or something else, but various reports from those who have seen the doll indicate that merely being in its vicinity can be painful. Harold was the first haunted doll to be sold on eBay and is currently owned by a man named Anthony Kinata, a paranormal investigator and author in his right. Its previous owner expressed concern over Kinata taking the doll, but Kinata was adamant about getting to the bottom of the haunted doll story. He brought Harold home with him after winning it on the online auction site in 2004. The persistence and curiosity lasted around a year until the doll's creepy and tormenting behaviour became too much for its owner to handle. Kinata has said the doll is guided by a dark force, unlike anything I've ever read or heard about in paranormal literature. In 2005, Kinata put the doll in a storage unit, where it stayed until 2013. After public interest in the doll grew, Kinata brought it out from storage to continue his investigations into the scary doll. Investigators and members of the general public who have come into contact with Harold have reported hearing aggressive and antagonistic voices, as well as seeing slight movement and changes in facial expression from the doll. A paranormal team, after asking to come in and do a reading on the doll, reported migraines and back pain caused by Harold. Others have claimed unexplained injuries, and Kinata even blames the doll for the death of one of his puppies. Harold also has a book written about him, which you can find on eBay or Kindle. I haven't actually purchased it, but I might look into purchasing it in the future. Mandy. This antique haunted doll is over 100 years old. Since 1991, she has resided in Kesnell and District Museum in British Columbia. Mandy was handed over to the museum by an anonymous donor. At the time the doll was gifted, its former owner reportedly couldn't handle the strangeness that often surrounded her. According to the museum, the former owner swore that a baby cries could be heard coming from the doll, its screams drifting up from the basement in the middle of the night. With time, the cries would grow so loud they couldn't be ignored, and that's when Mandy was handed over. Made approximately between 1910 and 1920, this doll is made from porcelain, and since moving into the museum has caused even more of a fuss. Following Mandy's arrival to her new home, unexplained footsteps were heard around the museum. Lunches would disappear from the fridges and turn up in drawers. Meanwhile, office supplies like pens, pictures, books and other items would simply vanish, never to be found again. Museum visitors have also claimed that their batteries drain around the doll. Their camera lights act erratically in the haunted doll's presence. The museum claims this real-life scary doll was even confined to her own case because it would harm the others around it. Annabelle is perhaps the most well-known haunted doll currently on display at the Ed and Lorraine Warren Occult Museum in Connecticut. Reports the possessed doll's terrifying antics have earned it a place in cinematic history. Much like Robert James Wan's Annabelle and the current released prequel, Annabelle Creation, are very loosely based adaptations on the Raggedy Ann doll's creepy powers. Supposedly so dangerous, she must be kept in a special box, which shouldn't be touched. The doll's dangerous hauntings supposedly began after a nursing student by the name of Donna came into possession of the doll through her mother. It's unclear whether the doll was bought new or at an antique store. Either way, once she entered the apartment and life of Donna, her roommate Angie, things took a terrifying turn. At first, Donna and Angie noticed the doll would move around the residence and change position. Quirky things the two young women were more than willing to put up with, but the doll, or whatever possesses it, started leaving notes and paper in their bathroom mirror, asking the women to help her. And when Angie's fiancé got into the mix, things started to get violent. The girls reportedly found blood on the doll's dress. Angie's fiancé claimed that Annabelle had tried to choke him while he slept and scratched his stomach when he entered a darkened room. That forced the young women to reach out to a medium. The medium claimed that the doll was haunted by a young girl who had died there eventually. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren said the doll was actually controlled by a dark entity. They took the doll off the woman's hands, and she has remained in her encasement at Warren's museum ever since. Robert the Doll. Currently residing in Key West, Florida, Haunted Doll Robert has inspired a series of tales and tributes, including the murderous Chucky doll from Don Mancini's Child Play series. Robert's story also made a recent appearance in Amazon's new horror anthology series Lore, which explores the human origins of some of our most terrifying legends. The life-size Robert the Doll was made in the early 1900s and given to a painter and author Robert Eugene Otto when he was a young boy by one of Gene's maids, a woman who reportedly practiced voodoo. When Gene was young, his parents and other servants would hear the boy in his room talking to someone with a distinctly different voice. While at night, the Ottos would wake to Gene screaming in the room of overturned furniture, soon after the Ottos began finding mutilated toys and hearing giggling and strange noises around the house. At first, many believed it to be Jean, who would often blame it on Robert, but as activity increased and more people noticed, some reports claimed that those walking by the house could see Robert move from window to window. The Ottos felt compelled to get rid of the doll, locking it in their attic. Upon the death of Jean's parents, Robert moved back to his childhood home, and out from the attic Robert came. Rumours swirled that Jean would spend hours locked in the house painting with the haunted doll by his side, and take it with him wherever he went. Jean's wife Anne was bothered by the behaviour, and eventually became somewhat tormented by the presence of the possessed doll that Jean kept in the chair next to her bed. After both their passings, a new family moved into Otto's house, but quickly moved out, citing that Robert the doll had attempted to harm them. Robert remains the most infamous and most haunted doll in the world years later. Be sure to pay your respects when visiting Robert the doll in the museum. Museum staff noticed a significant change in atmosphere soon after Robert went on display. Visitors complained that handheld cameras and electronic devices stopped working whenever they stood near the doll. Their devices began to start working as soon as they moved away from Robert's display case. Earlier still, letters arrived at the museum that were addressed to Robert. The letters were from previous visitors apologising for acting rudely to the doll and begging for forgiveness. What exactly happened to these visitors that prompted such a plea? The circumstances remain a mystery. Nevertheless, letters continue to arrive at the museum, where Robert remains on exhibit to this day. In fact, the staff of the Fort East Martello Museum recommends that patrons behave respectfully while in the doll's presence. They even suggest politely introducing yourself, just to be on the safe side.
There's another saying, everything has its price.
No, he's not for sale at any cost, Doug.
Would you consider a swap?
Yeah, maybe the Koh-i-Noor diamond in the crown jewels, in the Queen's crown. I'd swap him for that.
Meanwhile, that good luck continues. A flash new mobile home. A trip around Australia.
I don't know whether we'll take him or not. We might do. Some days we say we will, some days we say we won't.
Perhaps Evelyn should leave the predicting to the expert.
Spooky good fortune.
Did you enjoy that? If you did, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the notifications icon so you can see when I've done another video. And
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
until next time, I am Sir Shudder. See you soon. Be safe, be cool.